And I'm doing real bad at this game, but it's really freaking fun. Growing up in the late 80s and early 90s, one of the hardest video games you could play was Contra. This Konami classic seemed like it was everywhere. It was one of those titular games that was in almost every household. It had one-hit kills and some stupidly small projectiles, but was so much fun. Getting through any stage made you feel really like a hardened warrior, or an action hero from the era. Which, the title screen has obvious resemblance to Arnold and Stallone.
Get to the chopper!
Not only was it one of the best games ever made, it also gave us the Konami code. This is the code almost anyone knew and was really easy to remember. It was the ultimate code because it gave you 30 lives in Contra. This was the best way to try and get as far as you could in the game without having to play it hundreds of times before to get a decent way through the game. If this is a title you remember, or like the old run and gun genre, this topic in the video might just be for you. I had the opportunity to play this game receiving a free key from the dev team through Keymailer. Keymailer is a great site for content creators to request early access and to provide exposure for indie titles. Thank you Retroware and Keymailer for the free key. So the first thing that jumped out to me about this game is the art style. It just oozes personality. Don't believe me? Watch this animated intro. Oh my god, yes! This animated intro is so freaking metal, just like the rest of this game. But that animated intro, I adore the 80s style feel to it, and it shows a lot of love and care was put into it, along with everything else in this game. There are all the other designs in the game as well, the body horror inspired humanoid enemies, the way everything has an alien feel to it. It is not just biological beings that are infected either, it even infects mechanical objects. The way the iron and meat look together. Oh, I think I just got the meaning of the title of the game. Still, the fusion of flesh and machine has a really cool look to it, which they didn't have any issues with coming up with some really interesting boss designs. One of them is even an infected building. Along with the train, and a bus. There are plenty of references sprinkled throughout the game. There seems to be some inspiration from Stargate. The Stargate? We got a Stargate up in here? Superman. Super Metroid. Along with some Terminator inspiration in there as well. However, it certainly has its own style, and just hits all the right nostalgic synapses in my brain. Now, to go along with a great looking game, you need some nice sound design and music. Once again, this game delivers an all to you in spades. The music is a fantastic mix between metal and synth. The tracks have been composed in a way where it doesn't get tiring to listen to. If you're not some kind of savant in a run and gun game, you're going to be listening to these tracks quite a lot. This game has all the bloops and bleeps that you expect to hear from a 16-bit style game. The gun sound effects sound great, and has a nice subtle difference between each one and the power-ups you get along the way. The visceral sounds from each enemy's blowing up and dying from your gunfire. Whenever shooting more fleshy type enemies or objects, it has a very nice squishy sound to it.
Okay.
Which has a very nice
Nice.
contrast when shooting something that's more mechanical. there's this really nice whistling sound when certain enemy types are throwing grenades at you. You also cannot hate the little guitar riff once you gain an extra life. All in all, the game will definitely give you some feeling of nostalgia if you grew up playing these types of games. The game plays like you would imagine. Snappy feeling controls, the ability to aim in 8 directions, lock in place for more precise aiming, a weighty jump, crouching, and able to drop through platforms. It all feels very familiar. A nice feature that was taken from Contra 3, you're able to stack power-ups to increase your damage output, along with able to hold on to an extra power-up if you die, and switch between them that best suits different situations. The game definitely has an ease of entry to it. There's a difficulty selection when with normal is rather generous when it comes to lives, unlike the original Contra, where it just started you with 2 lives, which that is where the Konami code came into play. Although I do feel like this game had a missing opportunity with this. Yeah, I tried and there's not a Konami code to use. Even though the game is very generous with starting lives and you're able to gain more throughout playing, it could still have been used for something. There is a progression system for the game. At the end of every mission, you gain an amount of experience points. Along with being able to select the level at any time when starting in a new game, this unlocks new characters you can use instead of the 2 default models. What is also really interesting about this is that you're able to mix and match different body parts to kind of make your own character. I feel like the Konami code could have been used to unlock all of these characters, or for unlocking all the other levels. Speaking of levels, there are 9 levels to make your way through. Before each level, there is a short cutscene. The beginning of the game is pretty cool, introducing you to the body horror that you'll encounter as you shoot through droves of them. Not only are you given a fantastic opening in a 16-bit style game, you're also given the easiest and best achievements in any game.
Anyway, I started blasting. Bang!
The first level has a good feel to it. It has a lot of open space, providing a decent challenge to get used to the game. I am not the best at these types of games, but with the amount of lives that you're started off with, doesn't make it too frustrating when trying to make it through all the levels. As mentioned, there are one-hit kills, either by being touched by enemies or hit by a projectile. Each level is bite-sized. It should take 5 to 6 minutes to get through each one, depending on how well you play. Or, if you play co-op, I can imagine getting through the game in a much shorter time. There is a boss at the end of each level. The game has some great themes throughout it as well, from wooded areas to a moon base. You are given a nice variety of scenery as you play through. With being a 16-bit style game, has a nice sense of destruction throughout many of the areas you visit. The screen shake from an explosion feels just as good as a build engine explosion. After the first level is where I feel like one of the biggest weaknesses of the game appears. It is an indoor level and an elevator at that. With these types of games, I feel like being cramped in spaces have always been a bit too much, and open areas seem to lend more to the genre. That is completely my opinion though. Some may enjoy the tighter spaces with a lot more sense of danger while shooting at their foes. It isn't too bad for the indoor level. I feel like some are more so later on. Level 4 is where I felt like the game was starting to throw a little bit too much at you, especially being in such a cramped space. But the escalation of challenge should be expected from this genre. Oh, dang, okay. No, I lost a spread! I would love to go through each level, but I want to leave a decent amount of the game to let anyone interested experience it on their own. I, however, do want to talk about the final boss and the ending. I will put up an annoying spoiler warning for 5 seconds. You can skip to the summary chapter if you do not want anything further spoiled. Alright, first off, the Terminator influence is very hard to not notice. I mean, listen to the music. Yeah, that's just a little bit on the nose with the design. It does look really cool, and I am a fan of it. I, however, don't like the boss fight. Granted, the final boss in the game should have a decent challenge to it. I have 3 issues with this fight. There was just so much going on with this fight. In some instances, it felt like you didn't even have a choice but take a hit. There are a ton of projectiles at many parts of the endeavor. Just as I complained before, one of those worst enemies in the game is Bubbles. I really liked using these throughout the whole game. And once you gone through all of that, feeling as if you were successful in your mission, but once that face is finished exploding, you are met with a tiny feeble-looking creature. Then it extends out a horrific appendage, taking over your body. This is when I hit my limit with this boss. You do not have control over yourself, and there are so many bubbles filling the screen. The boss is no longer the green blob controlling you as a puppet. It is the RNG from the bubbles. I had such a hard time getting past this part, fighting each time. I was able to finally finish this game until I held onto the spread. Once I was finally able to blast away the onslaught of bubbles, I was then victorious. It is time for the game to reveal some more inspiration, by escaping the moon base in a bombastic way just like Metroid. You escape with the soldier you saw at the beginning to fend off the invasion, taking off in a ship back to Earth. The last reference I noticed is some music in the credits, another nice nod to Metroid. This game has a lot going for it, from its unique and nostalgic feel from the art style and design, to the feel of the run and gun mechanics. It offers a decent challenge, but can be overcome with some perseverance. The game does have some faults, but no game is completely perfect. This does come very close though. If you're looking for something new, but feels familiar, I strongly suggest Iron Meat. There's a free demo you can check out, and if you enjoyed the demo that much, you can pick this game up on Steam, September 26, 2024.